recording. Good evening, welcome. I'm Reverend Sherri James, the Senior Minister of Understanding Principles. I'm so excited that you are here this evening. We are diving back into the Proverbs. We took a break in December and the first part of August to focus on spiritual principle and understanding the 5 basic principles that guide our conversation on metaphysics. And I think of them as like your training wheels, like, or it's the gutter if you were a bowler, right? And the gutter is what keeps that ball from going into the other lane. So the spiritual principle is like the gutter for keeping you on the straight and narrow to get you to your interpretation of whatever passage or verse you are working with. So tonight we are working with verses 1 through 9, and I'm going to try something a little different because I want to make sure this is sticking, and I really want you to utilize this in your personal time, meaning that each of you should have a daily practice. And I strongly encourage you to have metaphysical Bible interpretation as a part of that practice. And so you don't have to think of it as like completing a verse all the way from beginning to end, that you can think of it as, I'm gonna do a little bit on Monday, I'm gonna do a little bit on Tuesday. I might only do 20 minutes, but that's enough. And again, it's, we become what we do every day. And I will share this, that we, our lives are built by our daily practices. Life is really not a mystery. It seems like a mystery because we don't live close to our daily habits. But when you go back and look at what do I do on a daily basis, it's always going to come down to what are your daily habits? What are those daily practices? And they're pointing you in a particular direction. And if there's a place where you want to change directions, you don't start with the big, massive change. You start with, what's that little daily thing that I can do that's going to make a difference for me? And so just 20 minutes a day of this kind of practice is going to open up your world in such a major way. And so if you have a testimony of how metaphysical Bible interpretation has supported you, please put it in the comments. I'd love to hear that, to know about that, and to rejoice with you in that. And so this month, or for the rest of August, what we're going to do for the remaining Thursdays that we have, we're going to work with verses 1 through 9 only. Tonight, we're going to concentrate on just reading the passage. So we're going to read as many different versions as we can fit inside of the time we have. And then we're going to identify the words that need to be looked up. Then next week, we're going to be looking up the words, and we're going to be developing the definitions. And then the final week, we are going to then go back and insert those definitions and begin to develop the metaphysical interpretation. And hopefully that will help us, because sometimes I feel like I'm like running through this, and I don't want to run through this because I wouldn't want you to take that energy into your daily practice. That this is think of this as like a leisurely gift to yourself. Like you're giving something to yourself by taking this practice and doing it on a daily basis. Okay, great. I thought there was a comment that I missed. All right, so I do have a wonderful announcement. So next week, the financial firm that I work with, EFC Wealth Management, we have a client event. So we will have a guest instructor, and this is someone who I've been a fan of for a long time. Those of you that are in the UFBL, you know her, but she's been one of the power teachers holding it down on the East Coast at One God, One Thought. Miss Constance Mann Leonard, who is amazing and has so many amazing testimonies of people that have been in her class that have learned from her, and I'm excited for her to guide you through the conversation next week. And so she will work with you on developing the definition. So tonight we're going to pick the words we're going to look up. Next week, she's going to work with you on developing those definitions. And when I come back, we'll work on developing that metaphysical interpretation. Okay, let's take a moment to just center ourselves in prayer, just open our hearts This is going to be an amazing evening that we have together. And I'm so grateful that God brought us together. And so I just ask Spirit that this be a transformational experience. We recognize that we are so much more than we see expressing right now. We are infinite in expression. And I ask for the study that we do to help release more of that imprisoned splendor. We are each meant to not just be extraordinary, but to live and express in an extraordinary way. And so I just give thanks right now for this conversation that we're having tonight, supporting that. And I ask that what we do glorify you in us, that because of our personal study, because of our collective study, that light that we awaken in ourselves then becomes an influence in everyone else's life. I thank you, Spirit. I know you always hear me when I pray. And so I relax and I allow this prayer to become so. And so it is. And amen. Okay. So we have the worksheet for the next 3 weeks, and that was sent out in the email. If you don't have the email, I do have this one thing to say, because I learned that Yahoo, AOL, a couple other email services don't play well in the sandbox with the mail service that I use. So if you have AOL or Yahoo, or mainly those two, you may not get the email. And I maybe Kartra is just not old enough for them to get past it, but I generally will ask someone if they have a Gmail account, because I get so many challenges with Kartra, with AOL and with Yahoo. But if you need the link, I can give you that. Maybe go here. And I'll have the link in, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, I will have the link in the show notes there as well. Okay. So our verses are Proverbs 4:1-9, Proverbs 4:1-9. And so this one that I've included on the worksheet is the New Revised Standard Version. So we'll start with that one. Alita, do you want to read maybe the first 2 verses?
Okay, I'll try.
Okay.
Listen, my sons, to a father's instruction. Pay attention and gain understanding. I give you sound learning, so do not forget my teaching.
Shamika, will you take the next 2?
For I too was a son to my father, still tender and cherished by my mother. Then he taught me, and he said to me, take hold of my words with all your heart. Keep my commands, and you will live.
Beautiful. Stacy, will you take the next 2, verses 5 and 6?
Sure. Get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forget my words or turn away from them. Do not forsake wisdom, and she will protect you. Love her, and she will watch over you.
Thank you. Thank you, Malala. Can you take the last 3, please?
Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. And with all thy get understanding. With all thy getting, get understanding. Exalt her, and she shall promote thee. She shall bring thee to honor when thou dost embrace her. She shall give to thine head an ornament of grace. A crown of glory shall she deliver to thee.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's take a minute. I hope you have paper with you. And so again, remember I said this could be a daily practice where you're just taking 20 minutes. We're going to take 2 minutes here, and we're just reading. This is the New Revised Standard Version. And so you just want to record any impressions that you have. And I have my app simple timer, and I'll start it. And so we're going to take just a deep breath. One more time, another deep breath. And a third breath. And then when you're ready, you want to open your eyes and just write down whatever caught your attention, whatever you noticed, whatever stood out to you. There are no wrong answers. You're listening for your own intuitive nudge. Right, I'm going to shift first. Let me take a minute to just ask, are there what impressions you have? Any impressions, and there are no wrong answers. You're just listening. This process is personal. You're listening for what the spirit has to say to you. Go ahead, Glenda.
Verse 6, do not forsake her and she will keep you. Love her and she will guard you. And that stood out to me right now because as the readings were going on, my son just texted me and one of his childhood friends was shot and murdered today. And so when I think about this particular friend, it's a friend that I steered him away from because of choices that the young man was making. And my son and I have had conversations about that. And so when I looked at those words, you know, wisdom will keep you. Love her and she'll guard you, she'll protect you, but you have to heed what wisdom says.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so that's what stood out to me at this time.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. The wisdom of a mom. Wisdom of a mother. Anybody else? Robin.
Hi. The statement that stood out to me was, though it costs all you have, get understanding. That just stood out to me because I'm like, want to ponder on that. Like, what does that mean? It costs all you have. Like, what is the sacrifice?
Yeah, that stood out to me too. I thought about choices I've made to be next to certain people that had information that I didn't have. You know, when I worked with Reverend Della, that you know, I made the commitment to travel to her house on Wednesday nights, you know, to be there, to be at her table, no matter what. And so I reordered my life. And so if there was something happening on Wednesday night, it couldn't conflict with Reverend Della. Like it, you know.
Yeah.
So, thank you for that. Anybody else? Anything else that stood out?
Yeah, I like to do something.
Okay, go ahead.
I see the Trinity. I'm not sure if probably some of you are familiar with the tree of life. The
Fear of life.
the tree of life.
Oh, tree of life. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, the Godhead, the top is made up of the crown and then wisdom and understanding, and all three of them are listed here, starting with understanding, and then it goes to say that wisdom, which is important, will actually lead you to the crown, which is the top.
Yes, yes. Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
The very first word really stood out to me. The very first word, listen. Listen. That really moved me. And then pay attention. What does those words mean, really? Listen and pay attention. The very first two verses.
Yeah.
How do I really listen? How do I really pay attention?
I think that's powerful. I heard someone say you listen with your whole body. Yeah. And I don't know if it was something relating to Jordan or what, but it was meaning like teaching him to listen. Like I feel like I've heard that from like a school, something he had, and it stood out to me because it made me ask the question, do I listen with my whole body? You know, or am I just listening with my eyes or being pointed in a direction, but my attention is somewhere else? So, because that's true, because you could, now you got me thinking about this now. So, because you could be in a space, you could be here, but your mind is somewhere else. You know, like your mind is on the other side of town. Like it is being completely present in this space right now. So that's deep. That's deep. I like that.
The one that resonated with me was love her and she will keep thee.
Yes.
So often we're given the right instructions. And we're given the wisdom from the elders, but we don't love it. We just shun it, put it aside, and do our own thing. And then we wish we had a listen, hindsight.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Right. Only listen to mama.
Yes. Yes. That's something, huh?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Anybody else before we move on to another version?
Yeah, I had
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And then Dr. Brenda. Okay.
Oh, I had kind of gotten stuck with on listen, like Stacy, and I kept, you know, hearing, okay, listen. Do you listen? How do you listen? And I'm talking to myself.
Yes.
And I also had thought about, do I have ears that hear? You know, so I just sort of got stuck on that one part, you know, and you know, just a lot of things. You know, you have two ears for a reason. You need to listen double time. You know, those just things that just kept coming to me. So I just kind of got stuck on that listen.
I think that's powerful. those of you that are in Chicago, you may know this story. Reverend Derek told this story in a sermon and it just touched me so much. I've been repeating it everywhere, probably butchering it, but just repeating it. And he told the story of a monk and his apprentice. And they're walking down, I think he said Chicago because he was preaching in Chicago, down the Chicago, main Chicago street, like downtown Chicago. And the monk asked the apprentice, do you hear that bird, I'm gonna say? And he's like, oh my God, I'll never develop that attentiveness at that level. And the monk said, oh no, you can. Let me prove it to you. He said, give me the change from your pocket. And so he took the change out of his pocket, gave it to the monk, and the monk scattered it on the ground. And all of a sudden, in this downtown, busy, hustling, bustling, the money fell on the ground. All of a sudden, everybody around is looking around to see whether it was their money that fell on the ground. And so it just really like brings your attention to the fact that our ears are always attuned to something. And the question is, what are we attuned to? What are we attuned to hear when it's spoken? So I know I butchered that story. I probably need to go back and find that sermon where Derek told the story so I can say it a little bit better, but you get the point. The point is that we're all hearing something. The question is, what are we hearing? Oh, thank you. It's in the dream series. Okay, perfect. Awesome. All right, great. I'm gonna go look for it. Dr. Brenda.
I was looking at verse 3, where it says, for I too was a son to my father, still tender and cherished by my mother. And I just remember always growing up that I did not have to always get the lesson. I could hear the lesson from somebody else. And so when I talk to young people, I share that because sometimes you have to, yes, get and hit that brick wall, but sometimes you can also learn from somebody else that hit that brick wall. And then that's a hurdle you don't have to go through, you can go over. And so that just reminded me, that we were all young at some time and we've all had to experience some of the same things as we grow.
Yes. Thank you for that. Thank you. Okay. Let me see if I can find this online. I want to go to the Jewish Study Bible. I don't know if this one is online. We're going to find out.
So this verse is part is like a precursor to Proverbs 31. I
Say that one more time, Alila. I didn't understand completely what you
said. I was saying it's a precursor, or they talk about the same lady in Proverbs 31.
So in the Hebrew, you see the word Sophia. And Sophia is the word for wisdom, Sophia. And wisdom in the Hebrew mind is a feminine quality of God. It's talked about like a woman, but don't think of it like a physical woman, although they are using the kind of double meaning there, right? But it is that the wisdom aspect of God is the feminine aspect of God. Okay. No, I don't want Genesis. I want something kept of them. Yes, and the kept of them. Come on. Proverbs. Okay. Let me share this. I'm going to try to make it bigger. It's a tad bit small. Proverbs chapter 4. All right, so we're listening now for how this is different. And my computer's just moving a little bit slow. We're listening for what you notice differently. So I've said often that, and this is not anything that well, anyway, that if you have only read the Bible in English, then you haven't really read the Bible. And so part of what we're trying to do with reading the different versions is get behind the human fingerprints as much as we can. And one thing that I want to point out is how just what we did there can feed you. Like, if we haven't even gotten into the metaphysics, we're just talking about those first impressions. That's why I said this can be the kind of daily practice that you have in your life, just 20 minutes a day, where you can sit with the scripture and just write out your impressions. And it can be a 10-minute exercise. You read it, you set a timer for 10 minutes, you read it, and then, oh, I need it. Okay. Jewish Study Bible. Let me go to Bible Gateway. You read it, and then you write whatever impressions that you want to write inside of those 10 minutes, that 20 minutes. So, this process that we're going through could definitely take you a long time to get there, but it doesn't have to. It's meaning that it may take you a week to get to your metaphysical meaning, but that doesn't mean that you're not feeding yourself or being fed along the way. All right. Well, I wanted to be able to see it on the screen. I'm going to just read it from here. So this is from the Jewish Study Bible. It starts with, sons, heed the discipline of a father. Listen and learn discernment, for I give you good instruction. Do not forsake my teaching. Once I was a son to my father, the tender darling of my mother. He instructed me and said to me, let your mind hold on to my words. Keep my commandments and you will live. Acquire wisdom, acquire discernment. Do not forget and do not swerve from my words. Do not forsake her and she will guard you. Love her and she will protect you. The beginning of wisdom is acquire wisdom. With all your acquisitions, acquire discernment. Hug her to you and she will exalt you. She will bring you honor if you embrace her. She will adorn your head with a graceful wreath, crown you with a glorious diadem. Isn't that different?
Yeah.
So same process. That was the Jewish Study Bible. I couldn't find an online one. So the same process. We're gonna just take a minute, take 3 deep breaths, and then we're gonna, in 2 minutes, and then we're just write our impressions, whatever they are, no wrong answers. All right, so taking that first deep breath. And let me be specific about the breath. It's in through the nose, out through the mouth as if you have a straw. Okay, when you're ready, you may open the eyes and write down whatever impressions come to you. All right. Any impressions? What jumped out at you? Oh, Constance says, by following these instructions, see how richly rewarded you will be and adorned with only the best. Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, so I looked at verse 6, and
Do not forsake her, and she will guard you.
yeah,
Love her, she will protect you.
but then I kind of cheated a little bit. I looked over on the words on the side, and then it said, it is not enough to obey wisdom. You must love it. And then 7, actually 2, the first step to attaining wisdom is to acquire or absorb it, absorb the teachings of wisdom. So that was just like really, as Reverend Anna said, made the baby jump a little bit there, because it was fabulous to me.
Yes, yes, yes. I love that. That verse stood out to me too, because it was the phrasing of it. You know, I'm so used to the King James or the New Revised Standard Version that wisdom is the principal thing and all of that. But this feels very conversational. Like the beginning of wisdom is acquire wisdom. Like go study, go somewhere and study, go somewhere and get the information that you need. And when you think about any profession, anything, that you have to start with that learning. It is like, how do you become a plumber? You got to go learn how to be a plumber. You got to go to the place where they teach plumbing things. How do you become a painter? You got to go to the place where they teach painting things. Anybody else? Any other things that's jumped out, that stood out?
Yeah, the embracing, just like Lita said, you gotta love what Lita can. But yeah, you have to love. You can't embrace something that you don't love.
So let me ask a question, because I think that's pretty amazing. What does loving wisdom look like to you?
It looks like sometimes going against the grain and looking like a, but you're sticking to, the principle, and sometimes that happens. Loving wisdom looks like loving God. I know how that's a general, but yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yes, I agree. Anybody else? What else stood out to you? Go ahead. Who that jump from? Stacy. Let me go to Stacy. And then
can you do me a huge favor? Could you read 4 from the Jewish again?
Yes.
I want to make sure that I heard correctly.
No problem. He instructed me and said to me, let your mind hold on to my words, keep my commandments, and you will live.
Yes. I love where it says the mind. And here it's talking about the mind. That right there is talking about holding it in your mind. It didn't read the heart, it said in your mind, where it all originates.
Yes. I agree. And let me ask you, when you hear hold something in your mind, how? Just going back to your question, when you talk about listen, like how do I listen? How do you listen? How do you hold something in your mind?
Think about it. Think about it. Yes. Throughout the day, just thinking about it.
It's almost like a little, in a good way, a little OCD with it. Like, this is all I do. All I do is look for wisdom in a particular area, whatever I'm trying to develop some wisdom around. Mhm, mhm, mhm. Thank you, thank you. Robin.
Two things stood out to me. One was, I don't remember which number it was, but when he was talking about his spot, like how he also was in the kind of loving and safety of his father and his mother.
Yeah, that's verse 3.
Yeah. And it made me think about how you can feel safe. You don't have to rely on your own wisdom when you're a child. You get to rely on your parents' wisdom. And so you're safe and adored. And it was kind of like, I too was comfortable staying there, but I'm helping you to get out the nest like I was helped out the nest. So it's like kind of preparing somebody to go out and live their lives. So that was one thing. And then when it was talking about loving wisdom, like I think the first time I heard it, I saw wisdom as an adult woman. But this time I saw her as a child, as a girl child, being loved and nurtured. And the more you pour into her, the more that comes out of her. So, yeah.
That's good. I like that. Y'all got some good stuff. I like that. Sometimes people say stuff and be like, I wish I had thought of that. Constance says, hold in your mind. Imagination kicks in and see, feel, be. Yes, 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 yes. Yes to all of that. Can you see how this kind of practice can sustain you? That if this is part of your meal every day, we are more than the food that we put in our mouths. And we have to feed the spirit. The spirit is not fed by non-spiritual things. So we have to feed our bodies daily. You wouldn't survive if you decided, I'm just not going to eat. You know, I know intermittent fasting is all the rage, but you're going to need some food in your mouth if you want to have the energy for what it is that you want and need to do. So it's the same thing with your spirit, that many of us are on E spiritually. And we don't pull into a filling station until Sunday. If we haven't booked our Sunday with a bunch of things that interfere with us going to the filling station. And what I want to suggest is that if you want, that's good for maintenance. I see from my perspective, that church on Sunday, however you do church, whether that is your own personal spiritual church, because some people don't like a physical church experience, which is fine. But that, whatever that looks like, whether it's with a group, not with a group, you by yourself or whatever, that's good for maintenance. But if you want to get at what is yours to release into expression, meaning that what they call that imprisoned splendor, the trapped self, if you want to get at that, you need a daily practice. And so doing this just, 20 minutes a day can literally begin to crack open. And the benefits are wonderful. I would venture, if I took a pulse on like how we feel in this moment, I would imagine it would be positive feedback. I feel inspired. I feel enthusiastic. I feel light. It could be that, but I want you to think of it as like a cumulative impact. Like a week from now, doing this every day, 2 weeks from now, doing this every day, a month from now, doing this every day. You become, you change from the inside out, because your mind is now feeding on something that is nourishing and that is healthy for you. Anybody else on the Jewish Study Bible before we go to another version? Did I get any hands? No? Okay. All right. So I'm going to go now to the American Standard Version. I always take a look at the American Standard Version because it is the version that Fillmore used for the the interpretation for and so I always like to read what my teachers read. Truthunity.net. You can access a hyperlinked version of it. And I like this version so much because it all the words that are in the metaphysical Bible dictionary and in the revealing word are already hyperlinked. You don't have to guess at what's in the dictionary and which words to look up, because they kind of give you a little cheat sheet. Okay, same process. We'll read it, but we'll start here, and then we'll do the 3 breaths and then write down our impressions. Let me start. Early. Will you read the first 3 verses, please? And do you need me to make it bigger, or is this clear? Did we lose Early?
No, I'm here. I didn't know I was muted. I didn't realize I was muted. But my internet is going in and out, so
Okay.
bear with me. Okay.
Sure.
Verse 1, hear, my sons, the instructions of a father, and attend to know understanding, for I give you good doctrine. Forsake ye not my law. That's as far as you wanted me to go, or one more?
One more.
For I was a son unto my father, tender and only beloved in the sight of my mother. And he taught.
Let me go to Dr. Brenda. Will you take 4, 5, and 6?
Okay.
And he taught me and said unto me, let my heart retain my words, keep my commandments and live. Get wisdom, get understanding, forget not, neither decline from the words of my mouth. Forsake her not, and she will preserve thee. Love her, and she will keep thee.
Miss Glenda, will you take 7, 8, and 9, please?
Definitely. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. Yea, with all thy getting, get understanding. Exalt her, and she will promote thee. She will bring thee to honor when thou dost embrace her. She will give thy head a chaplet of grace, a crown of beauty she will deliver to thee.
Wonderful. All right, I'm starting the timer. We're going to take 3 deep breaths. Let me say something about the breath. The reason that I gave you the breath the way that I did, where it's in through the nose and out through the mouth as a straw, that what it's doing is that it's relaxing that sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight nervous system, and shifting you into the parasympathetic nervous system. So it's literally calming you down so that you can hear the voice of God. And that's a technique that you can use in your daily practice when you're, on the job or in another setting and something just gets really, really tense, that without even needing to say anything to anyone, you can literally shift the emotion, the fight or flight response when you feel yourself defensive or worried or frustrated or whatever. It's just to breathe in and then out through the mouth as if it was straw. And it's just something that part I can't tell you why straw versus I don't know that part. I just know in through the nose, out as if through a straw. Okay, setting the timer. Okay, when you're ready. And write down your impression. Okay. Any different impressions? Any new things you heard in this iteration?
Oh,
Anything
like,
it made? Go ahead.
the part where it says, I too was taught by my elders, kind of gives you the impression that wisdom is something that you have to learn from the older generation. But it kind of takes time to get, through like trial and errors of generations. So it's just
Yeah.
not one thing that you can just like
Yeah.
download.
That stood out to me too. And I was thinking about conversations that I've had with Jordan. And one of the things that I did the last 2 years, next year, when he turns 8, take it a little further, but I've been teaching him use of his third eye. And so we'll be driving in the car and I'll say, hey, Jordan, can you go and use your third eye and go back to your classroom at school? We may be on our way to church. Can you go use your third eye and go back to your classroom? Can you see your teacher? Can you, and so I'm seeding this, right? Because what I know is that where the mind goes, the body follows. And so what I'm starting with is teaching him, you can send your mind. Wherever you are, you don't stay there, right? So you can send yourself into preferred experiences and live there. And as you live there and attain the feelings of reality around it, it becomes your experience. But it's just that's what that made me think of. So yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. Anybody else? Anybody else? Anything else? Yeah, go ahead, Robin.
I noticed, well, the thing that stood out to me, it might have been in other ones, but it said something like, let your heart retain my words, your heart, instead of your mind.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
That even though we speak of wisdom in the feminine, it starts with hear the instructions of a father and attend to know understanding. It's kind of like that yin yang, that the duality that we live in. We need both sides in order to have a full understanding of everything we need to know.
Right. Yes. So anyone else before I move on from that?
Yeah, I sort of picked up verse 7 with wisdom is the principal thing. And it kind of reminded me that with this wisdom, you do have to have the understanding, because if you don't have the understanding, then you can't make it practical. And if we don't make that wisdom practical, well, we might know it, but we're not using it.
Right. Yep. Very much so. Very much so. So I hope you're getting ideas for how you can work with this on a daily basis. And I want to go back to, I want to spend just a little bit of time now talking about the verses, the words to look up. So some of them will, and I'll do a little running list because this will be the list that you work from next week. So some of them are the ones here: Father, understanding. All the ones that are hyperlinked. All the ones that are hyperlinked are the ones we're going to look up. Father, understanding, good, doctrine, law, Father, heart, commandments, wisdom, understanding. Even trying to tease out, like, what's the difference between wisdom and understanding? Sometimes we use them interchangeably, right? Love, wisdom appears again, understanding, head, grace, crown, beauty, years, and life. So those are the definite ones. The other things you look for when you're choosing the words to look up is, are there words that change from version to version? So I would say the word here, get, right? That there's something here in this word, because in one verse it said acquire, another one it said get. In the in the New Revised Standard Version, it said get wisdom, get insight. So something's going on with that word, and that would be a word that you would look up because it's changing. What that's telling you is that different groups of people looking at that word in the Hebrew are coming away with a different impression of what it should be. And I thought I left the whole Anchor Bible commentary over on the other table, but it's telling you that there's something there in that. And so that then becomes a clue, like, okay, I want to look that up. Another one that you may want to look up is the one where here where it says, am I doing this right? He instructed me, keep my commandments. So so one said, and live, another one said, and you will live. In the New Revised Standard Version, it says, keep my commandments and live. So again, you're just looking for what are those discrepancies? Because the thing about scripture, wherever it is that all scripture is somebody's decision on what was important. We are not reading, well, even the Hebrew is an interpretation. Even going back to the Hebrew is an interpretation. There is no original, and it's not like somebody thought it and then wrote it and then everything emerged from there. What we have, you have these documents that come out of a community, and the community produces the documents, not the documents producing the community. And so what you have is that there are stories that have been passed down orally through generations. They don't get written until late I mean, the kingdom has fallen. Like David is no more, Solomon is no more. The northern kingdom has been scattered to the far wind. So we get the 10 lost tribes. The southern kingdom has fallen to Babylon, and they're going through their mourning process, mourning. They're going through their mourning process. And in going through the mourning process, they begin to write down their history. Until that, you had scattered stories here and there, but there was this concerted effort to produce these works. So these stories or these verses, especially the ones that are like time sensitive, if you will, these stories go way back through, time, like hundreds of years, if not thousands, that they are writing about. So that would be like you writing a story in 2021 about the 1600s. Yeah, you're going to do your best research, right? But your best research is going to depend on your sensibility, your willingness to go deep on the research. I mean, you don't know what life was like in the 1600s. You're going to have to go depend on somebody else's account of what life was like in the 1600s. And so, and they're going to be what they call anachronisms in it, meaning that you live in 2021, you have a 2021 sensibility, you have a 2021 understanding of the world. In the 1600s, there were still a good majority of the people believing that the world was flat and had four corners and that you could sail off the edge of it. And with clarity, you can get in a plane and fly around the world. People are going into space. Like the dawn of ordinary human beings in space is upon us. We can fuss about Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson and say whatever we want to. The dawn of humans in space in a mass way is upon us in our lifetime. If you think about the speed of how things are happening, the ability for you and I to potentially get on a spaceship and leave the Earth's orbit is very high. The potential for it, not that saying that we would do it, but the potential for it is very high. So if you were writing a story about the 1600s, it's very hard to turn off that 21st century brain and mind and go back to the 1600s. Well, it's the same thing with these stories. So when we are reading them, we are reading an interpretation of an oral history in an interpretation of the language that it was first written down in. So it's an interpretation of the interpretation. And then I want to tell you, they didn't get accurate with the copies until the printing press, which is the 1600s. Like every word you read in the Bible is somebody's decision about what was important and what needed to be said. And this is why you have to come to it with a heart and in the right mind, and why I give you the breathing exercises and the prayers and this, because what you're listening for is the voice of God through all of these human fingerprints. Because the Spirit will speak to you even through the human fingerprints. Yes, thank you. Shamika says, I think the Jewish Study Bible changed understanding to discernment. Yes. So next week, what we'll do is I'll have a list of words and phrases that we'll work with, and Constance will lead you through developing the definitions for those words and phrases, and possibly break into groups or work on them together, however she decides to conduct it. I don't want to tell you how to do your class, Constance. But going through and developing those definitions, and then when we come back on the 29th, 19 plus 7 is 26. When we come back on the 26th, then we will take those definitions and put them inside the scripture and begin to let that metaphysical meaning emerge. Are there any questions? Was this maybe a little bit more helpful tonight doing it this way? Any insights, any different understandings you got, maybe slowing it down and going this way?
I liked, I think being relaxed, more relaxed
Mhm,
help more to come out
mhm.
of me.
Yes.
Just put me in.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it really helped me.
Anybody else?
Nope. This has just been very helpful.
Well, my prayer is that that which you are uniquely suited to do, you do. That you have your corner of the kingdom, which is wide, expansive, never ending. But you have your corner of the kingdom of which you are responsible for. And I'll share this with you. This is something I say to myself on a daily basis, is that I build people who build great things. And my affirmation to you is that you are those people. You are those people who build great things. You're meant to change the planet. I believe that with everything in my heart. And my service is to support you in doing that the best way that I know how, which is introducing you to my understanding of God in support of you developing your own understanding of God. So thank you so much for being here tonight. I will see you guys in 2 weeks, but Constance will be with you next week to develop the definitions. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Reverend Sherri. Have a good week.
Good night and thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
Love you.